Chelsea hosted Brighton at home on Saturday, 4-2. It's a great game. I mean, I listened to it on the radio before I watched it because I was working, and the commentators could not keep up with the game. It sounded more like a basketball game, if I'm brutally honest. Um, Andrew, you were there. Your thoughts on the game itself and Chelsea's performance?
That's one of the most bizarre games I've watched in recent memory. Especially the first half was just ridiculous. Um, was like okay, so they scored first.
Yep.
Bizarre decision from Sanchez. Bizarre decision from Caicedo and Colwell, and it was just a fucking mess. I don't really know what anyone was doing in that situation. Um,
I don't think they did either, to be fair, but carry on.
well, I think they were just desperately trying to get rid of it, but it was bizarre. Um, and then I believe we scored two that were almost carbon copies of each other. Had a few goals disallowed in between it as well. And Brighton just never really changed what they were trying to do.
Yeah, you said off air Brighton tactics were naive. Talk to me more about what you think that naivety is, because I'm intrigued by this, and I think Chelsea,
Well,
in some ways, were playing a similar style of football to them, style of game or formation. Um, so were we just lucky, or was it just Brighton being naive?
I think that we're better suited to it on the basis that our centre backs quicker, but
Our centre back to what? Sorry.
quicker,
Okay.
and I don't think their attack is quite as quick as ours. I don't think like Danny Welbeck's as quick as Jackson, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, the issue of their formation, I think they've even said it, or the manager's even said it since the end of the game, is they weren't getting enough pressure on the ball to be that high. If
Yep.
there's not pressure on the ball, you've got to start dropping, and they just weren't. And they kept trying to play a high line, and Lewis Dunk was getting outpaced left, right, and centre. He just can't. He couldn't keep up with Jackson and Madueke, and it was just an absolute torrid time for them. And I'm just very surprised that they didn't change anything. It was a bit like the Spurs game last season when they went down to 9 men and they just
Mm.
kept this ridiculous high line, and we could just sort of run at them with almost free will.
I agree with that. I agree with that comparison with the high line. Absolutely. I mean, for me, in a weird way, I looked at it a little bit like the Wolves game a few games ago, in the sense that we found a weakness with Brighton and we found a weakness with Wolves.
hmm,
The different weaknesses, but a weakness nonetheless. Where with Wolves, it was Aitanuri was just completely out of position, and we was it Madueke had so much space out on the right.
yeah,
Whereas, and you're right, with Brighton, they had a high line. I mean, it played into our hands, and we were playing for that high line from the get go. There were warnings there before we even did score, as you said.
yeah. I think Maresca set them up to do that, from what Cole Palmer said. Um, but I just thought it was a bit bizarre that they didn't. And I think that's something that seems to have just happened recently in football, where everyone's just decided this is how we play no matter what's happening. And I find it ridiculous that teams don't sort of adapt and go, right, it's not working today. Let's change the way that we're playing. Let's drop a little bit deeper. Let's give ourselves a little bit of
Just
like
quick,
room.
just quickly on that point, not to take you away from what you're saying. It's the age old question when you see like the pundits during the game and at the end of the game talking about this. Do you think that should be coming from the players on the pitch, or do you think the manager should be then saying it? And do you think, if you think it should be the manager, do you think the players are too worried about making that change themselves in case of what the manager could say?
I mean, in theory, it should be the manager.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you have to stand up and be counted. And I think there's certain players going back through time that would have just changed things. I just don't think JT would have been like okay with how things were going. And I think they would have changed how they were playing in some slight way and dropped a little bit deeper and played a little bit better. Look, it's a difficult one, but I do think it's sort of a manager's thing. I think the manager have kind of just said this is the way that we play, and they need to not do that. That's not how you get points. If something's just
No, I
better,
agree.
I do feel a little bit sorry for them because it was in a way working. They were causing us problems at the back by pressing really high, and you can't really press. You can't press really high and drop your defense because you just leave too much space. It's too easy to cut through you. So there was an element of it that was working, but it just felt there was a period of sort of 20 minutes where almost every time we had the ball, we played a long ball over the top and it just worked. And I think he should have probably realised after the sort of third time, because we'd had 2 disallowed goals before we even scored. And to be fair, the goal that we scored wasn't really that problem. It was a pullback pass. But I think they should have changed something. I just thought, very naive to keep allowing this long ball over the top. And even in the second half, when it wasn't as much of a problem, because we knew they were susceptible to it, we were just playing these long balls over the top, and they weren't even really dealing with it when Cole Palmer played one over the top for Nicholas Jackson.
Yeah.
And that one I just think they should have dealt with better, but it just felt a bit too easy.
No, I agree, and this is the thing for me where, before we get onto this point about how we're, people are now saying that we're potentially title contenders and definitely should be in the top 4 with the way that we're playing. One's even labelled us as dark horses. I can't help but feel that some of the teams that we've played against recently are the makers of their own downfall due to certain tactics that they're playing in. So I feel like, not to take anything away from the performances or the goals, but I do kind of feel that maybe that because of the way that the teams are set up against us and they haven't changed anything, it has played into our hands slightly and made us look quite good. So do you think that we are actually that good, as a 4-2 win over Brighton, for example, or was it 4 over Wolves as well? Did we score 4 against Wolves?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think we're that good, or do you think that there is a possibility that it's part of this is also now down to how those teams have set up and their lack of willing to change?
I do think there's a fair bit of it that is an odd way of playing against us. I think they kind of played into our hands a little bit, and maybe it's sort of teams trying to test actually how good are we playing out from the back, because I think last season we weren't that great at it.
No, we were not.
I think this season we've got a manager that is finding these problems in those teams and telling the players, like, you should be looking out for this. And I think that's really helped us take advantage of it. So in a way, we are that good because we're being coached well to look for things that we've obviously done. Someone's done their research. They've discussed it with Maresca, and they've sort of communicated to the team that we need to be looking for this thing. And we've sort of abused, like you said, Aït-Nouri being out of position in defence, because I think he tucks into midfield so that and doesn't get back quickly enough. And I think the high line for Brighton is something that was a problem for them. I think they played Forest and they conceded a couple of goals because of it. So we've obviously looked into that and done quite well there and exploited that. So I think there is an element of we are quite good. We are taking some chances and finishing when we have chances. So there is great improvement. I just think we are going to play a lot more teams that don't do that. We've like our hardest game so far, other than obviously City, who you kind of just go, they're an incredible team. And it was our first week. We're still getting used to the system. Hopefully it'll be better when we visit their place and we have more of the ball and look better. But our hardest game is against Bournemouth outside of that. And they sort of sat back, counter-attacked us very well, and probably looked like the better team for a lot of the game.
No, I agree with that. I mean, I don't think Palace were too bad, but West Ham are all over the place at the moment. The defense didn't show up.
Yeah.
And like we said, with Wolves and Brighton, they didn't make the changes that they needed to stop us from overpowering them, basically. No, I like that assessment. going back to the whole title contenders thing and the whole top four conversation that's now taking place, and I think it was Jamie Carragher who labelled us as the dark horses. You predicted us to finish 6th. I predicted us to finish 8th. Do you see us being title contenders now? Do you see us being more of a top four contention with a bit more comfortability? What are your thoughts at the moment?
I think we have adapted this system a lot quicker than I thought we would.
Agreed.
I thought we'd have a lot more dodgy results in this period, and I think we've caught that little bit of luck in games. So, like against Bournemouth, we got a little bit. It feels like a little bit of luck with the stumbling through from Nkunku and tapping it in. That we didn't really get last season.
No, true, but
it just didn't quite. It was more like it just doesn't quite come off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I still think that we could have a run of games like Leicester did apparently last season, where the system kind of gets found out a little bit and we struggle.
That was Christmas time for them.
Yeah, I just think we could go through a period where we play bottom 6, they sit back, counter attack, and we probably drop points that we shouldn't be dropping. Really, if we're title contenders, I don't think we're in a position to be discussed as challenging for the title. I think if you get to Christmas and we're kind of there or thereabouts, you kind of go, oh, hang on. But we're 6 games into the season?
Yeah.
Played City and no one else, really.
I mean, we've got Liverpool.
Expect us to beat.
We've got Liverpool in a few weeks. I think that's going to be a big game. If we carry on going the way that we're going against Liverpool, that's massive.
If we beat Liverpool in 3 weeks' time, I think, then and look good and win the games leading up to it, you kind of go, maybe they've got a chance. We'll see. But I think it's far too early at the minute.
No, I agree. I don't think we're title contenders. Not when you look at City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. I think they are firm in the race. Experienced teams. I know that Liverpool got a new manager, but they've hit the ground running. The team hasn't changed an awful lot. You know, I agree. I mean, I will say that I probably now feel like maybe, just maybe, I've under predicted.
Well, I hope so, because we're in for a fair amount of pain if you haven't. I do think we should be looking at challenging for top 4.
I'm feeling that now. Oh yeah,
and anything above that is great. I think just improvement on last season. Looking, if we can keep this kind of form up, look good, play well, I do think with this young team there'll be a few stumbling blocks, and a couple of poor results that mean that we're nowhere near really challenging the title, because you have to be almost perfect to be Man City these days. So I think it's one of those where sort of bottom 3 or 4 teams and top 6, we'll see what the results are like against them. And I think the middle teams that might have a bit of confidence against us to try and play against us, we should be better than and we'll sort of exploit it a little bit. I think we could be in that same trap against the Cities and the Arsenals that probably are just slightly better at it and the way that they play than we are.
Just quickly, do you think, I mean, I think it's a simple question, but are you worried about League Cup, Europa League, FA Cup getting in the way and potentially causing problems for us in the Premier League? Just a simple yes or no.
No, it looks like he's quite happy to play the second team. We'll see with the FA Cup what happens there, whether he plays the second team or he tries to win that one. But I think with the squad that we have at the minute, while we don't have too many injuries, you kind of go let them play in the cups and see what they can do.
Excuse me. Bet. I like it. Right, on to the creme de la creme. Cole Palmer. Absolutely outstanding performance. He's a man on fire. He started this season how he ended last season. Should have got more minutes in the Euros. I think that's now being proven. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with him moving forward for England, because with the stats I've got in front of me at the moment, he is looking like the best English player at the moment. So he is now the first Premier League player to score 4 goals in the first half of a Premier League match. Across the major Euro leagues since September 2023, he is second in combined goals and assists, only being beaten by Kane. Kane has 49 in total, Palmer has 43, and then third and fourth are Haaland and Mbappe with 39 and 37. He's only 1 goal behind Mbappe, actually, as well, 28-29.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The bloke's been on absolute fire. I do think he's been slept on quite heavily. I think it was a bit of a travesty with the form that he had going into the Euros that he wasn't playing and kind of starting. I get that people rave about Bukayo Saka, and Bukayo Saka has been decent for England. I just think the bloke deserves a chance with the numbers that he was getting. And then when he got a chance for England at the Euros, kind of proved that he should have played.
I mean,
He
that
always
goal
seemed
against
to have an
Spain in
impact
the
when he
final
came on.
was brilliant.
Yeah, always had an impact when he came on. He just always looks to go forward. Always, like, his first thought is going forward, I think, every time. And if he can't, then he sort of dribbles back and tries to retain possession. But more often than not, when he gets the ball, something happens. So yeah, I'm very glad he's a Chelsea player, and I wouldn't trade him for Saka at all. Just not a chance.
No, I wouldn't do that. Someone said that, actually, I heard on the radio the other day that they thought Madueke was better than Saka, which I thought was an interesting.
I think he has the ability to be, because I think he's more two-footed than Saka is.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
And I think the things that Saka is good at, he has the ability to be as good at. I think decision making is a problem. I think Saka is a better decision maker than he is.
100%.
And he's more clinical, but I just think Madueke has the ability to do it. He's just not as consistent as Saka's been over the last couple of years.
I think just before we go back onto Cole Palmer, because I just think Madueke is sometimes just too selfish.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing for me with him, and compared to Saka. I think Saka will choose the pass over a shot if the pass is on. The last stat I have actually for Cole Palmer, which this one really blew my mind, because he's already scored the same amount of hat tricks for Chelsea as Lampard, Drogba, and Hasselbaink, which is 3.
Yeah, and in 2 of those games, he got 4.
I mean, he could have got 6 in that game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
missed 2 relatively easy ones.
Well, no, he didn't score one. He scored one, but he was offside, and the other one was a post. And I think he missed another one. One was over to go over the crossbar.
The ones I'm thinking of, he dinked the keeper, I think, and hit the post.
Yeah.
And there was one in the second half that he hit right-footed, and he just skewed it wide.
Yeah.
I think the one, I don't remember, maybe he was the one that had it in the net for an offside. No, he wasn't. It was Sancho.
We had 2 disallowed for offside. One was Sancho, one was Palmer.
Oh, was it? I forget that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and what's nuts is he also was creating a lot. And
Yeah.
I just don't think those were finished. I don't think those were finished off. Like, Jackson had a really good chance that he played a ridiculous ball through. Played no look past to Madueke that was just ridiculous. Just the bloke has everything in his game. If he starts scoring headers at corners, you're just going to go, what more does this bloke need to do?
Are you surprised that teams haven't found a way yet to get him out of the game, or teams? Are you surprised that teams haven't put more pressure on him?
I have noticed that a lot of teams are kicking him a lot in the first 20 minutes.
Yeah. They're all taking it in turns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that has kept him a little bit more quiet, because it's difficult to press the ball when you're just getting kicked over. I do think it's a case of he needs to be better protected by referees. we're going to get
Like
into another
Eden
situation
Hazard.
where Hazard was just getting kicked all over the place, and it was almost like, well, he's just that good, so they're obviously going to kick him. You go like, well, no, they don't have to lunge in, they don't have to kick him. So I think he needs to be protected slightly better because some of the tackles are just there's no chance of getting the ball, and all they're doing is kicking him, and they don't get like no cards, nothing.
Yeah, I'm actually quite surprised. Not saying that it should happen, but I'm surprised that no one's actually gone for him properly just to try and put in a big challenge early doors. You know, 2-footed, take a booking. You know, let him know that it's not going to be an easy game, kind of thing.
I just think that would be naive, and to get a booking that early against us when we've got so many good dribblers, they are better off just sort of giving him little kicks that you'll probably get away with.
But
And that's what they're doing. And in certain instances, it seems to work. I think against Brighton, it was never really going to work because he was just looking for the long ball over the top, basically immediately. So they
well,
just didn't.
he did a fair amount of runs himself because it was Enzo that was they were looking at Enzo to do a lot of the balls over the top. To be fair,
Hmm.
especially in the first half. What was your favourite goal by Cole Palmer on the weekend?
Free kick,
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
just ridiculous.
I was so surprised. I heard it and I was like, oh, I'm surprised he took the free kick. And then I saw it as well and how far out it actually was. I was a bit like, no. And then top bins. Off was
What?
it didn't the keeper get a hand to it and then it also hit the post? Is that right? Or it just hit the post?
No, it wouldn't. Keeper got a hand to it, and then it went into the side netting. But I don't think it. Yeah, what I found ridiculous about it is I think the goalkeeper was standing too central. I think he should have been further on the other side of the goal and shouldn't have got anywhere near it. So the fact that he didn't save it, despite being central in the goal, I thought was just ridiculous.
No, it was an incredible goal. I mean, all the goals were nice, but that I thought was special. I really did think that was a special goal. I'm not even going to talk. Do you want to talk about the mistakes that we made that led that they scored from? I mean, at the end of the day, there are two mistakes. I mean, this. I would say that this is what I'm more worried about than anything else with regards to top four and being title contenders. It's these mistakes and this philosophy of we're going to score more than you. I don't think we can do that against every team. Like that's the biggest worry for me.
Yeah, and until it costs us a game, I think we kind of keep going with it. While we're still scoring more than the other teams, it's difficult to make the argument. I do get the point that against Man City, against probably against Arsenal actually, you can't give them too many, and because they're not going to give
Or
you
Liverpool.
at all. Yeah, so it is against the good pressing teams. I think Brighton were excellent in pressing us. I think Liverpool are very good at pressing. I think City are good at pressing. So it's though, yeah, it is those games that we may well come a cropper to it, but I don't think it was that bad. Like these mistakes are just going to happen, and it's what one this season from Sanchez has conceded a goal.
No, I mean a lot of people are putting
Not
a lot of stuff on
random.
Sanchez at the moment. I'm not saying that he's the problem, or I'm not saying that any specific player is the problem. I think there's just something about the back and decision making at the back. We discussed decision making at the top end, but I think the decision making at the back. I mean, you mentioned it. You mentioned it earlier on, or in the previous episode briefly, with the whole Caicedo Colwill thing. I just think Colwill should take control of that situation because and just launch that ball or get rid of that ball sooner. Caicedo doesn't actually need to pass it to him.
Hmm.
And I'm not sitting here saying it's this person's fault or that person. I think it's more, again, it's the experience of getting to know this system. But I just think of that in that situation, if Colwill, for example, and I'm not saying it's his fault, but if Colwill had just said, called it, put his name on it early doors, and Caicedo didn't have to pass it back, you're saving yourself an issue there. But then again, Sanchez still came out and all this other stuff. So, you
Yeah,
know,
there's a catalogue of errors, and I just think these mistakes are going to happen. I think that one's more worrying than the other one. I think the other one is just the way that we play, and I think Maresca's kind of gone. We'll concede probably 10 of those this season, and
Which
we
one?
have to
The
deal
one
with
where
it.
Sanchez passed it out without looking.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't agree with that. I think that I don't think there's an excuse for that. It's a lazy ball. It's not to anybody.
that's the way it's gonna. That's the way it's gonna be. There's not much we can do about it. That's the way that we want to play. If there is an option there, we're going to try and play it. And on that case, it didn't work, and we got pressed, and the pass was a bit loose, and it didn't work out.
A bit loose.
To be fair, I haven't actually seen it back. I only saw it live.
It's nowhere near Caicedo. Like it's absolutely nowhere near him. Like I'm all for players should be a bit more aware about a loose pass going a little bit. He had no chance.
Mm.
He could have been as switched on as you want, and I'm telling you now, he's going to be thinking it's got to be going to someone past me.
Right.
Like yeah, it's just. And by the time he's realised, that's because the Brighton players now come into his vision, and he's gone, oh
Yeah.
shit. So yeah, no, it's just that it's just an awful sloppy, lazy pass. Which I think if you're going to be playing that way, that you need to be a bit more switched on for that. I don't want to be seeing 10 of those going in this season. So yeah. I think that covers everything, to be fair. So with that, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button, comment below, and stay tuned for next week's episodes, which will feature Ghent and Nottingham Forest, I believe. Thank you all for watching.